Hello and welcome to Global One Media. Joining me today is Fernando Tallarico, the Managing Director of Aguia Resources, an exploration company that is currently leveraging its phosphate and copper assets in Latin America. And today I want to discuss with him Aguia's promising ESG credentials. Hello, Fernando. Thank you for joining us today.
Hello, thank you for the invitation.
Of course. So according to your plans, your phosphate project is a 000 project. Can you tell us a bit more about what that means and how do you intend to achieve that?
So 000 is it's an acronym for zero carbon, zero water, and zero energy balance. So what's what's behind that? It reflects the design of the mine, right? So especially the processing plant. So every bit of water that we're going to use, for example, is either recycled or in origins from or rain. There's a complex system of tanks, etc., and all the engineering to support that. When you go into energy, it's the same thing. We're going to be connected to the national grid, but we're going to produce our own energy. And in fact, we can even sell to the grid. So in all of this energy that's going to be produced in the project is green, it's solar. And all of this is going to follow and connect into a neutral carbon emission. So whatever emission that we have with our trucks, etc., is going to be balanced off by all the carbon credits we're going to generate with solar, with all these initiatives. And also we have a 300-hectare park that we're already possess and we're improving to generate carbon credits to support all this activity. But it's not only on paper right now. This is being scrutinized by an international entity. We're in the process of being certified by EDGE. It's a green entity related to the IFC that gives these credentials, the 000 stamps.
That's excellent. And as I understand, you intend to use a similar model for your copper asset. Can you tell us about how you plan to achieve that?
Yes, certainly. So it's essentially what we want to do is use the same approach because we're changing the end product. We're going to go from fertilizers now to metallic copper, but it's still mining, right? So the idea of the open pit, the operation, and the processing plant are going to be very similar. When it comes into certain particular items in the processing plant that we have to include in the copper that are not there in the phosphate, we're now developing, testing new technologies. One in particular, we're in the right now in the half of a 14-month test work with in semi-industrial scale with bioleaching. So what we want to do is part of the processing of the copper to produce metallic copper cathode. It will be done using bacteria. This is not a new development. This technology, for example, is used by major companies in the Andes, for example. And this will, at the end, we're going to go through the same certification process with EDGE and eventually other entities that will be giving these credentials at the time. And essentially, the goal here is obviously to do the best work we can do in terms of mining, to provide our shareholders and the community the best we can do in terms of engineering and to the environment. But also it gives an important component to the copper itself because it's subject to critics. You can hear this a lot in the specialized industry. Copper is under demand now, basically for electrical vehicles, for wind turbines, and for solar panels, all going into green energy, right? But every once in a while, you listen to criticisms. Say, okay, you're going to buy a electrical vehicle, you're going to save a lot of copper emissions during the life of this car, right? But because it used 10 times more copper than a regular fossil fuel vehicle, all the carbon emission that you provided to produce all that copper, we're essentially balancing off at zero at the end. So it balances what it generates to be built. But when you put green copper in this equation, it's totally different, right? It's all a win-win process. So that's where we're heading, right?
That's really good. And as for the social side of things, do you feel that Aguia has obtained the social license to operate in the communities in which you work?
Yes, and I'll explain to you a little bit about this. When we started moving from, say, the drilling and more geological part of the project and going into engineering, and we knew that we have had an economic project that would be eventually be built going through permitting. Immediately, we engaged PR companies and people related to going out there and doing outreaches to the society. We're working in a very close community, probably around 5 to 6,000 people in the city of Lavras. And from day one, when we started engineering, we always kept a very open channel and very proactive to the society, to the point that when we got to the public hearing, we had essentially in the stadium essentially half of the county's population was there, right? And we streamed live the hearing on Facebook, so we had another 2,000 people attending virtually on Facebook. So it was a big success. The society defended the project and they kept on defending, right? Obviously, this is not unanimous. There's always some resistance, but in general, we have a very, very strong support from the community.
I'm sure that makes things a lot easier. And I want to talk to you a bit about governance. Are there any regulatory challenges you're facing in Brazil, and how do you ensure compliance?
Well, there's basically two levels of two environments of permitting, right? We have to be permitted on the mining side, right? So that's all taken care of. From exploration, you move into production. So all these titles and reports and etc. Have been fulfilled. It's a very transparent method. We use a mining code that's in place since the early 60s, with basically only minor adjustments over time. It's very similar to any other mining code in mining countries like Canada and Australia, for example. So there's really no big surprises there. So we still have one level of which is the operational license from the mining department to be issued, and the environmental process is very similar. It's very clear. We have engaged the best consultants basically in the world available for mining. We had Golder leading a pool of companies that conducted all our EIA and our permitting. The public hearing gave us the LP, the preliminary license, which is secured. Right now, we did everything that we had to do for the construction license, which is not issued already. And as I said previously, it's not unanimous, and we faced a little bit of resistance from a couple of NGOs in the region. And also, we're facing civil public action from the public prosecutor here. But we have won everything so far. That's to be clear. And there's absolutely nothing stopping us from moving ahead. So, and I'll finally add to this that we're heading towards the end of this process.
All right. And my last question has to do with human performance. How do you minimize human error and ensure that people are delivering their best consistently?
Listen, I have 33 years in the mining space, and since the very early stage of my career, I've been always managing people, and this is one thing I think I am good at, and I like to do. And I say to my staff, people is the most complicated asset to manage because it's the origin of all problems, but at the same time, it's the solution for all of them and others. So, first of all, you have to have a team that's different. Every individual has to be different and has to be respected for that differences. I do not want clones to agree with me. I need people that disagree and then people that think differently, and I want to have an environment where these differences are heard. The power of the team is always much bigger than the individual, and I tend to have teams that stick with me for decades. So people come and go, but it's basically mostly the same that in different stages of my career or the project come back again. So this is a big measurement of success. Not only this, I have managed people in the most vast environments, and especially in exploration, that you go from very sophisticated environments down to field camps with security is in some places of Africa, for example. So, but it's all about plurality.
Sounds like you have a democratic and supportive work environment, which is really good. All right, Fernando, thank you very much for all the information and for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you again and hearing the next updates from Aguia.
Thank you.